And we're back, and we just finished watching 2019's The Assistant that's currently streaming on Hulu, right?
Yep.
It tells the story of an assistant, a day in the life of an assistant who works for obviously a powerful executive in the entertainment industry, and her almost obsession with him, it seemed like, by the end of the film.
Yeah, it was
very unsettling. The story itself was very unsettling. I myself, in my 9 to 5, am an assistant, and I was curious about this from the trailer of it. And a lot of this spoke to me. A lot of the actual film of it spoke to me because I've been in those situations. I don't work for entertainment people. I work for finance people, which may or may not be the same type of beast. But she seems to work for a guy who is an absolute monster.
Yeah, he's never seen.
You never see him.
Find out his name.
Right.
But everybody seems to
live in fear,
and everything revolves around him.
Yes. And there's something very unsettling about the whole dynamic of the office, the people in the office. They obviously, the people that have been there, you come to find out that she's only been there 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like the other players know how to maneuver this landscape.
Yeah, it's like even the two other guys, the production
assistants, yeah.
They're even guiding her through the apology letters that he seems to demand, because right. I think at one point he scolds her on the phone.
Yeah,
and you hear him say something like,
demanding an apology.
I want an apology.
Right.
And then he's just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make you great, or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm so hard on you, whatever he said in his reply.
Everything is an abusive relationship.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny because when I saw the trailer, I got the impression that you couldn't trust the two assistants, they were kind of throwing her under the bus, but that really wasn't the case. They were legitimately looking out for her, it seemed like.
I felt that way too, and to the point where I was just like at the end of the night when the guy's like,
oh, we're going for drinks or dinner.
For drinks or something, I was like, she should probably go, because
right.
they could commiserate, because if anybody else knows what kind of horrible piece
of shit that guy is,
and a horrible human being they're working for,
it would be those
two guys. And one of them at some point
got in trouble in the day.
He got scolded for something. You see him
leaving,
come out of that office, and he looks
like a baby with a spanked ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just
it's the story itself isn't dynamic. It's not.
It really is like a day in the life.
It really is a day in the life.
It's literally a day in the life of this girl, this young woman who's trying to start a career in this
entertainment industry.
She
wants to be a producer.
And apparently this is a choice gig that she got, but it's kind of like hell. I mean,
it's demeaning, it's draining. I mean, you could see her demeanor at the end of the day. It's almost like she has to push herself to continue.
You could see her demeanor at the start of
the day. Yeah.
From the get-go, you see that this is killing her.
Yeah.
And that was another thing. There's a lot of instances where I'm I've worked in office settings for years, for decades even. Mm-hmm. And I've never encountered the level of douchery. Well, the other coworkers are just leaving stuff for her to she's some sort of slave for them. Yeah. She's cleaning the conference room, and those two douchebags are just standing in front of the door, looking at her disapprovingly.
I've had that happen to me. That
is
yeah. So that's why? A lot of this it's so funny because as I'm watching this, I almost wish I wish I had my girls, we had done a watch party of this, because an assistant completely understands this movie. The woman who wrote it, Kitty Green, she's also the director, she had to have been an assistant at some point, because a lot of this rang true. A lot of what you see rings true for when you're an admin. I mean, not to say that there aren't great managers, great bosses out there, but I feel and even in my position, expect the worst kind of is the way to go, because you have to prepare yourself. Working in finance and I guess working in the entertainment industry, a lot of money can be made or lost like that. So I think there's this expectancy, there's this high pressure. She talks about the stress of the job when she's talking to the father towards the end on the phone. So these jobs, and the most amazing scene in this is her interaction with the Matthew McFadden character.
I'm guessing it's like the HR
person or somebody. Yeah. He's obviously the Michael Cohen of this situation. He is,
and you could see he's clearly dealt with a lot of this.
Yes, and it's interesting how, I don't know about you, but that scene was amazing because it was like she comes in and it's almost like he's her friend, and then in the middle he like tears her apart.
Yeah.
And then at the end it's like, oh, here's your conciliatory pat on the head. Oh, don't worry about it. You're not his type. When he said that, my jaw.
Yeah.
I don't know if you looked at me, but I was like.
Yeah. No.
I was like, what?
It's basically just like you're not his type, but if you were, we'd be protecting this guy.
Yes.
Because we have in the past.
Yes. Yeah.
This is how the system works here.
I don't know if
you have like they all seem to have the same color hair.
Yes. And they all sort of look like a type, right?
Well, there was the Asian girl,
the Asian woman who was different,
who was
but
like the outlier there. But
yeah.
The other ones, there was 3 other women who possibly, were messing around with him, or he was messing around with them. And yeah, they all had a specific type.
Yes, for sure. And I love that you brought that up, the whole, like, that they're going to protect him. This obviously, she must have worked in entertainment. This had so many shades of Harvey Weinstein.
I was about to ask you that. Was this based on Harvey Weinstein?
I don't know. I didn't deep dive on this, but it just reeked of it, that whole situation, especially that scene. Because in a lot of these big name... I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. Go ahead.
I remember when that whole thing was going down, there was the reveal that his company actually had some sort of contract with him that basically said, if you do this again, you have to pay your own legal fees or something like that.
Right,
or you have to pay a fine to the company.
Right.
Which basically meant that this is known behavior. This is something that we have come to expect
from you.
And in order to police ourselves or police Harvey, we're going to punish him ourselves for doing this sort of thing. Which, let's be honest, the guy's making like millions of dollars hand over fist. He doesn't give a crap about that. He's just going to rape as many women as he can.
Right. With no care or regard.
That's what this felt like to me, that the company knew the way this guy behaved, knew the sort of predatory behavior, and even joked about it. Oh, never sit on the couch.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And in the beginning of the day, you see that scene where she's cleaning.
She's got to scrub the couch. Yeah.
Right. And she says to Matthew McFadden's character, oh, I have to keep things tidy.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, we have a cleaning staff. She goes, oh, but that's part of my job. I have to keep things tidy. Yeah, this movie was definitely, if you're looking for something more exciting, this is not it. This is definitely a day in the life of someone who is completely demeaned, humiliated, put down, put upon.
This story is like a straight line.
Yes.
Even there's no real character arcs.
No.
You see something's wrong in the beginning when she's going to work. You see why something is wrong during the entire day. And at the end of the day, nothing really has changed.
No.
She's going to go to work tomorrow again.
And it's going to be the same thing.
It's going to be the same thing. And the only thing that stuck out to me that was especially weird was, at the end of the day, why was she lingering?
That's why I said at the beginning, does she have an obsession with this guy? I don't understand.
I think she was it felt like she was so desperate for his approval.
Because it had been hammered into her head, this is such a great opportunity.
This is a great opportunity.
Even McFadden's character's you think you're so much above? I have 400 resumes of people that want your job.
And when she spoke to the driver, And he's like, did
he say that?
He says you work hard. He
Yeah.
says you work very hard. Mm-hmm. And she's like, did he say that?
Right.
So I don't know what's really going on there.
I don't know. It's the whole vibe of the movie was very unsettling. It just felt like it could go in some very strange places, and it sort of did, but at the same time...
Go ahead.
No, you finish.
It just feels like because we know so little about her, we don't know anything really about her. It just feels incomplete.
I get that. The thing that I liked about that, and I completely agree with your look how it's incomplete, I think it's supposed to be. I don't think you're supposed to know more about her other than what you see and kind of come to your own conclusions. At least for me anyway, I felt like that was the whole purpose of the piece. Like, you judge for yourself, because in some ways, and again, my opinion and my interpretation was, she's kind of a masochist. Some other person, especially like, I feel like in her age group, she's obviously a millennial, she's been raised a certain way. This isn't the 1940s where women are supposed to not be heard and just supposed to be decorative pieces. If she wants to change her situation, I think she can, but the problem there is, do you then wind up blackballing yourself in this industry that really can hold a grudge, right? Or do you just let it roll off your back and continue head down with your eyes on the prize and eventually, hopefully, get to where she wanted to be, which is a producer, right?
Yeah,
because that's what she says that she wants to be.
I think that's like what was the sort of like the status quo of the company, because even in the last scene on the elevator, that woman says
she'll get more out of it than he.
She'll mean not the assistant, meaning
the flavor of the month.
The aspiring actress that the producer had on his casting couch at the end of the movie. One of the other women in the company says she'll get more out of it than he does. Mm-hmm. Trust me, I know. And she had the right hair color too, that lady. So,
that's possible. Yeah, I didn't even think of it like that, but it's interesting. I mean, he definitely has a type, and this is not something that's going to change. He's certainly not going to change.
No, he doesn't give a crap.
And the assistant isn't going to change him. So she has to, in my mind, she has to reconcile. Is this the life that I want? And if it is, then I have to accept everything about it. No questions, no comments, nothing.
Because there's no way to fight it.
Because there's no way to fight it. The scene with Matthew McFadden's character absolutely illustrates that. Yeah. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, who is she? She's a secretary. She's nobody.
She's replaceable.
And she's replaceable. And he is some high-level executive who, on a whim, I mean, in the earlier parts of the movie, she goes to that guy, like, oh, you're going to California. Mm-hmm. And
and that guy's just like,
okay, right. It's like, it's no, like, I have to tell my wife, I have to consult, no, this is too short notice. No, and at the end of the day, there he is in the SUV waiting for this jackass to be finished so that they can go to the airport and then get picked up in Los Angeles at 1:30 in the morning. So it's very interesting. And I've never had an egregious experience like that, but I could completely relate to some components of the storytelling. And it's weird to see it, I guess. What do you think? Anything else you want to discuss about it, or should we just give our numbers?
Not really. I mean, like I said, this is basically a straight line. There's no major character arcs. There's no real twists or turns in the tale. At the end of the film, I actually even said I was waiting for something to happen. You're not bored.
No.
It's not a boring film by any stretch of the imagination. You grow concerned. You hope that something will happen, but it feels like the beginning of a longer story. I don't think we'll ever see that. But
no. Well, I think too. I
guess it leaves it up to your imagination.
Yeah, and I think that was the intention of the filmmaker, to show you this kind of slice of life, to kind of be aware that these things happen and to be horrified, but to also know that sometimes in a lot of these situations, nothing really changes, because there is no salvation here, because if she was obviously a different person, if she was a big time producer or if she was a big time actress, she could put her foot down and be like, no.
Or even
but
just
she's not in that position of power.
Or even just a more forceful personality.
Yes.
She's very timid.
Yeah.
And the actress, what's her name?
Julia Garner, who we'd seen in We Are
What We Are,
which was, I liked it a lot.
She has a very frail
appearance.
Very frail appearance and demeanor.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at her hands are like sticks.
Yeah, like little bird,
like little porcelain dolls.
Yeah. Like she was brilliantly cast because she seems very breakable.
Yeah, like her skin is like
translucent,
white as milk. Yeah. And she's got this like wispy, curly blonde hair.
Yeah, and she's a little itty bitty thing.
Little thing. Especially her hands. Her hands were like.
Yeah.
They were like, her fingers are so thin.
And another thing, I don't know if you noticed, a lot of the scenes are filmed on top. So she's being looked down on. Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting little, like, part of the storytelling. In a lot of scenes, it's like, you're looking at her from on top.
Yeah.
Which also makes it like a dominant, subservient kind of positioning.
Yeah.
Most of the office is men. Even though the female interaction she has, I don't think anybody's really nice to her. You could see almost a bit of kindness. I wouldn't even go so far as to say kindness, but sort of commiserate with the guy who is told, "Oh, you're going to California." Yeah. Like that guy. Like she would go to that guy, and you could see that guy was miserable too. Yeah. There was like going to California. Oh, he seems like is here. Yeah, but he seems like somebody that's been there and is.
He's been there for
kind
a while.
of like the fall guy. Because I was just gonna say what you said, like the 3:00 appointment, how he basically took a hit. Yeah. Like that guy knew he was walking into something.
Yeah, he's definitely the guy who takes the fall for all of this guy's shenanigans. Mm-hmm. In that respect, he was probably the only one who I kind of felt he knew the misery that she was feeling. Mm-hmm. Even the two production assistants, they were supportive, but they sort of had each other.
Right, and they had built like this rapport and this language that they kind of
those two had a friendship. They were like in the trench together, and they were with each other.
And I think that they're men. Like this would never affect them.
They were men that like they weren't probably not as sensitive to the fact that this guy, he just seemed like a sleazy man, like bringing some young waitress all the way from Idaho to basically having to sleep with. Although none of that, there's no actual confirmation as to that, but it's heavily implied.
Absolutely.
Like you could see that their skin had been thickened.
Yes, for sure.
To the point where they were even like getting some enjoyment out of their day by listening in on somebody called or something, and they were sort of giggling while they were listening. Yeah. So they were finding their joy where they could. She was just miserable the entire time. It was just like.
But it was strange because even though she was miserable, I still felt like kind of what you said before. There was a part of her that needed that kind of acceptance or validation from this guy.
It was almost like the only way that she would find joy would be if this man said, "Good job. Right. You made me proud."
Right. And then I was wondering, is that a ploy just to get what they needed? Because to me, like the conversation with the McFadden character was like, oh, that's great. We definitely need more women producers in this industry. To me, that was more like kind of like a brush off. Like, okay, I'm just going to say what I think she wants me to say. Yeah. I don't really mean what I'm saying. Here's the carrot. Yeah. Because when he goes hard at her after, and that was cringy. That scene was cringy. My God. To the point where I was like watching it and like, oh my God, what did you do? Why did you do this?
And then at the end she has to say thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very bizarre. And then the other thing was interesting, the interactions. There weren't too many. It was a couple with the wife where she is just basically screeching.
Yeah, why are you yelling at her?
Right.
That's the thing like you. I guess you've encountered this sort of thing, but every place I've worked, everybody's been like polite to one another.
It's a different industry. Finance is a different beast, I think.
It's like, oh, you got to clean all right, give me a minute, I'll finish up and wait for the meeting place to be clean. We're not like standing there like,
no.
You'll get this incompetent stooge.
Yeah. It's not even that. It's like, why are you in here? Can't you see I'm here to have my meeting?
Yeah. No, I've never encountered that kind of thing.
Goodness.
It's always been like, oh, even when it's like, oh, we have this thing, it's like, okay, we get up and we walk to someplace else to finish the meeting or something like that.
Yeah. No.
And we always clean up after ourselves because our office manager at my current company, she's clean up after herself. Put your chairs back in when you're done. Jenny don't mess around.
Yeah, no, there's none of that over here.
Okay.
People would stand. It's funny. My favorite is because I was one of the conference room bookers, right? And if somebody was in this conference room and their meeting was going over, the next group would just stand outside and stare and stare and stare. And then somebody in there would mention to somebody else, and then somebody would pretend like they didn't see the crowd of at least 10 people outside the door. And somebody would be like, 1 minute, one more minute, one more minute. And then almost half an hour later, they're still in that room.
No, that don't.
I've actually because I used to sit outside one of the conference rooms. I've actually seen people have yelling matches with each other.
Oh, wow.
Where I would have to step in and be like, I'm sorry, this person now has the room. Oh, but it's a client. I still need the room. Well, you should have booked this room for longer if you knew that you were going to go over. Don't book the room for 30 minutes if you're going to have a 2-hour conversation. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I have stories. But anyway, what would you give this film number?
I'd probably give it a 7.
Oh my gosh, get out of my head. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I'd give it a 7 just because
it felt incomplete.
Everybody's performance was great. It had a definite story where you like I cared about that
girl,
the assistant. I felt I was rooting for her. I was rooting for her to like make a difference in the company. It wasn't that kind of movie.
No, it was not.
Yeah, there wasn't any montage of everybody getting together and putting up posters in the break room or something. But
like in what was that movie with Lakeith? Sorry to bother you.
Well, yeah, sorry to bother you.
Yeah.
But you still cared. You still cared about her. All the characters, from what you saw of them, you knew who they were. I thought it was interesting that they never show that guy.
Yeah.
And they never say his name. He's always referred to as he.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which made it even more ominous. Even when she wrote emails, she never wrote his name.
Or she probably did, but you just never saw it.
No, she just wrote return, and then started writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You never saw his email, nothing.
Yeah, that's true, actually. That's true.
And that definitely made it more like ominous, because when he referring to someone as he, that's like the Bible. It's like capital H-E. And that's how it felt. Except I wasn't thinking God, I was thinking more like a devil.
It's definitely, I get the impression that this isn't going to be the type of movie for everyone.
No.
But I think that even though, like you said, it's a very straight story, there isn't too much up and down in the actual story itself, but it's compelling enough, the characters are interesting enough, the little that you see it immerses you and it leaves you wondering. And I think that was another thing that I really appreciate about the piece, because it's like, it's very ambiguous. And like you said, like they never say his name, right? So it's even more up in the air. It's almost like, oh, you've had a boss like this who was a total asshole. You know what it's like. You remember what this is like. So it's almost like leave it to the viewer to kind of, in their own mind, make those connections. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting about the piece. But I always felt watching it, it's not a long movie, it's only an hour and 27 minutes. I felt very unsettled the entire time. Because when she gets into the office, it's dark. When she leaves the office, it's dark. And she's in this cramped space, and it almost, like I said, from the trailers, it felt like she couldn't trust those two guys. And I feel like, yeah, what you were saying, like they commiserate with her, they understand her, But if push came to shove and they had to throw her under the bus, I get the impression that they would not hesitate.
Yeah, there wasn't, and like another thing about how the whole thing was filmed, there wasn't like a single warm color in that movie.
No.
It was
just cold.
Cold. Everything.
Yeah,
looked
everything
cold.
about it.
Everything was like beige.
Yeah.
It was just an office. It was the worst office with the cubicle walls.
Everybody on top of each other.
Everybody on top of each other.
Yeah, because even the space where she's in with the other two male assistants, it's like...
Yeah, it wasn't a nice building.
No.
It was like an old building. It was one of those old buildings, and I've worked in like old offices, and they're like that.
And it's just dark.
It's bad lighting.
Yeah.
It's just depressing.
And that adds to it.
You could almost feel the dust in the air.
Yeah, and that definitely adds to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would give this movie a 7 too. I don't think it's for everyone.
Yeah, it's definitely not exciting. Like I said, there's no real story arcs. It's a slice of life, that type of movie, and it's an interesting slice of life type movie, a true slice of life type movie, because life doesn't have massive story arcs where we defeated them and now the rec center is gonna stay and
and serve the community and just be a warm, glowing spot for everyone.
We're gonna win the skiing contest and save the old folks home or some nonsense like that. It's just, I worked today and then I went home and it was miserable.
So if you've ever had that type of experience,
I had a muffin for dinner.
Yes. This might be something worth diving into. It's currently streaming on Hulu, I think available on some other platforms. It's an hour and 27 minutes. It's rated R. It's from Kitty Green, the writer-director who is from Australia. And she's a film director, editor, producer, and screenwriter. Really well done. I feel like I want to now see other stuff of hers, so I'll I suss her out and see what else she's done. But I really like this. I think I would, if somebody asked me, I would totally recommend it. But yes, with that caveat, it's not. Don't go into it expecting a lot of stuff, and it's not boring. It's just, like I said, I felt very uneasy the whole time watching it.
Yeah, it's just basically like a flat line of life.
Yeah,
there's no highs nor lows. It's just, this is a bad situation. You're rooting for, and that's also the mark of a good movie, is if they can make you care about the character. Yeah. And you cared about her.
And another thing too, I think it leaves you wondering, like, will she keep doing this? Will she snap? Will she just carry on and just try to develop a thick skin?
It's interesting to ponder if she has what it takes to do this, because
if she ultimately really wants to be the producer, does she sacrifice?
This was like after 2 months too. It was after 2 months. She's already going to HR, and she doesn't really have anything. She's just basically going there on her emotions. Yeah. And that guy eviscerated her. Yeah. Oh my God. It was so horrible to watch. I mean, it was funny because I turned to you at one point and I was like, she should have just gone in and complained about the wife and how the wife's verbally abusive on the phone. That probably would have backfired on her too.
Probably, but not as bad as this, I don't think. Like, this was bad. The two assistants knew. The guy knew. Everybody must have known. Like, this guy didn't keep his mouth shut. And it's like, you're supposed to be HR. Well, I'm assuming, right? Because just from the...
Yeah, they never say
no one ever... Like, I don't even know what her name is. Like, on IMDb, it says her name is Jane. But did anybody ever refer to her as Jane? Nobody really refers to anybody by their name.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, whenever the one male assistant wants to get her attention, he, like, crumples up a piece of paper and throws it at her.
Yeah, pretty much people are nameless for the most part.
Yeah.
The driver had a name.
Amir. That was the only one I remembered, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the nanny had a name. I don't think the wife definitely didn't have a name.
Yeah. The other male assistants didn't have a name.
Did the girl from Boise have a name? Or did they just refer to her as the girl?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That was very,
Yeah, it was very strange. But it was interesting because it's like, I'm sure stuff like this happens all the time. Somewhere.
A lot of scumbags. I remember my mom telling me stories when she worked as a secretary for these two, like, insane lawyers.
Yeah. Lawyers are bad too.
And she's like, all these people are like, like one of them comes in and he's like, where's the other one? And she's in the office, and he goes in and the guy is just like passed out in a pool of his own vomit because
he's
a
drunk. Yeah.
And then eventually she had to leave that place. Like she was leaving one day, and the guy came up with like this woman and like somebody who looked very young, and it looked sketchy. And she basically gave it her notice the next day. There's some skeevy people out there.
Yeah. I mean, this was definitely interesting. I definitely would recommend it. Again, I don't know if it's going to be for everyone, but I think it's interesting storytelling. It definitely leaves you with a lot more questions than answers by the end. And Julia Garner, wow.
She's good.
She's really, really good. I really enjoyed her.
I'd like to see her play something a bit happier. I've seen her in 2 things, and they are not happy movies, man.
Maybe the next one will be like a Farrelly comedy.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
Her and Christian Bale should do like a slapstick comedy.
Yes, why
bumping
not?
Each other in the head with socks full of quarters or something.
Why not?
All right.
All right, that's it from us, and we'll come back with another review soon. Good night.
Good night.